The first part I want to talk about is the actual certification process. If you are not certified in NIBRS yet, the certification process is pretty simple. It's a little bit time consuming, but what you do is first we train you guys. We're kind of like what we're about to do right here. We go over the NIBRS code setup and then the data entry, both the case data entry and the NIBRS review data entry. And then we go over the actual data extract, where you actually pull the data from ARMS and then submit that to the state or the FBI. For Mississippi, the certification process is 6 months of data. So what we would do is we would train you up in NIBRS, make sure you know what you're putting into the system and you're able to fill them out. And then you would do 6 months of data and you can do that for past months, you can do that for the next 6 months, and you do that in concurrency with your UCR data. So your UCR summary data, you're going to be submitting that and also submitting NIBRS. They do that so that they can compare the two and make sure that the data that you're submitting is accurate, that it matches. And so what you do is, and obviously we help through this entire process, where once you finish the month, we help you extract the data, make sure it matches your UCR, and then help you to submit that to the right people, to the FBI. They will then review it and send back the results. If there are any errors, then we help with resolving those errors. If there are no errors, then you're done with that month and you can move on to the next month all the way up until your 6 months are done. Again, if you do need to get into the certification process, we can go deeper into detail with it, but that's sort of the basis of it. And also, we are going to help every step of the way. So beyond that, the next part I do want to touch on is the NIBRS code setup. Now, we're going to be going through this webinar sort of assuming that you've already got your codes set up. If you do have questions on them, we have documents, lots of documents on it on our support site, where you can get a log into that. You can also just email us and we can give you documents that will help with this. But I do want to go over the main ones to show you how they affect your NIBRS data reviews. So if we go into setup, and then we go into the crime and incident, the three that we're going to look at are crime and incident, your crimes, locations, and your property. Those are the three big ones. So your crime and incidents, you can come in and whatever codes you already have in the system, you can update those to be able to report to NIBRS. So we'll go to this aggravated assault. If we come in here, the only thing you have to change for your code is you have to add in your UCR offense data. I know the FBI kind of made it confusing there, calling it UCR offense instead of NIBRS offense or something like that. But this is the code that you would put in for NIBRS. A 13A in NIBRS means an aggravated assault. And that's all that NIBRS cares about. They care about the code. They don't care about your description or the name of it. They care about this code. If you report this code, that means there was an aggravated assault. And then the only other thing you need to do is choose between crime against society, crime against property, or crime against person. Obviously, this is an aggravated assault, so this is a crime against person. Other than that, that's all you need to do for the crime code setup. You do have to do this for any NIBRS reportable crimes in your system, but at least with that, you only have to put it in 2 different fields. All right, and then if we go to setup, you can go to GeoFile and look at your locations. So if we go to a location here, you've got right here, NIBRS address type. So you would go to your locations that are already in the system and just add a NIBRS address type to there. You don't have to add all of these in there. We provide all of these and actually import them into your ARM system. And then you just choose which one relates to the location that you have. And then the final bit of setup, there are some other things that you would set up, but they're very small and pretty quick. The last thing that's pretty big to go through and update, if we go into code list and choose category of property, and then subcategory of property type. This right here, you're going to be able to relate this to NIBRS. So if we come in here and you've already got aircraft or something like that, all mine are set up to match NIBRS, but you can have your own kind of codes in the system. So if you have another word for alcohol in here, so you may have a different description or a different code that your officers are used to putting into the system, then you can come in here and translate it to the NIBRS property description. That makes it so whenever an officer puts in the code that they're used to, when you start your NIBRS review, it's going to pull that property as whatever the NIBRS description is, as long as you have it mapped in here. All right, so other than that, that's the bulk of the setup that you would need to do in the system for reporting your NIBRS. The next part we're going to do is actually go through and put in some data entry so you can see what that looks like. So the first one we want to look at is right here. We've got 3 different types of cases. We're going to have a simple assault and a vandalism first, and then a larceny theft next, and then the last one is going to be a drug, narcotic, and drug paraphernalia charge. So for the simple assault and vandalism, on the face page, first thing, or what we'll import into the NIBRS review is going to be your location. You saw how we just set up the location on the other side. This location is going to be Parkwood Hall, and that would import in as what we set the NIBRS location type to be. Next is going to be incidents. So whatever your incidents are that you choose, if those are related to a NIBRS UCR offense code, then they will import into the NIBRS review. So we've got a simple assault and a vandalism, and those are set up on the back end. Then this is a part that we didn't go over, but it's pretty simple. We've got 2 names in here. We've got Mary Markison and Marcus Marison. Mary Markison is the victim, and we've actually got this involvement type mapped to, just like how we mapped the property, we've got this one mapped to import into NIBRS as the victim. And then similarly, we've got arrested person in here to map as the offender for NIBRS. You can set up arrested person, suspected person, really anything else that you would use as the offender. You can set those up on the back end to import as offender. This all just makes it so that the officer puts in what they're used to putting in, and it just imports into NIBRS for you. Name type is a little bit different. You can set those up to relate if that person is a resident or a non-resident. And right here, we've got them split up, student resident, student non-resident. This would be for if it was a college. And otherwise, you would just have to put it into the NIBRS review whenever you are there. So you don't have to set that one up, but it does save you some data entry on the NIBRS review side. You'll also see with the complainant or victim, you have down here some other options whenever you're actually putting that person in, to put in the victim type of injury, and connect them to a UCR offense code. I don't have this one connected because I want to show you what that looks like whenever you get to the NIBRS review if you don't have officers putting that in. All of this information down below is going to be NIBRS related. Then also on the arrested person, you've got an arrest added to them and a charge that will all import into NIBRS. All right, and then the last one, since we do have a vandalism, we have a piece of property on here called bicycles and damaged. We'll go in here. You've got damaged property, which will relate down to the NIBRS type property loss. That's another setup you can do, but it's very simple. It takes like 5 seconds. So this one, whenever an officer puts in damaged as the category, it automatically marks the NIBRS type as destroyed, damaged, vandalized. Same thing with property type that we set up just a second ago. We've got bicycles, and it imports as bicycle. The only thing that they would need to add is the value. And then all of that information will import into the NIBRS review. All right, so next we will go down to the NIBRS review. That's all the information we can add to the case to be able to add that. We'll go to NIBRS, and then we'll go to add in our review. So what we want to do now that we're adding in the NIBRS review, we'll go ahead and click Start New Review. All right, and you can see it's split up into different segments. First segment is administrative. It's got your incident number, your incident date and time. If the case was cleared exceptionally, these are the options that you can choose, and then you'd put in an exceptional clearance date. And then you've got cargo theft right here, which cargo theft is going to be related to any theft. If you have a theft in the system, then you have to put a certain type of cargo theft on there, either yes or no. For the most part, it's always going to be no, but you do have to put that for a theft. If it's not a theft, then you have to choose not applicable. If we chose no on here and hit save, then it's going to pop up an error saying, no, cargo theft must be NA for anything other than these types of crime codes. All of those codes right there are thefts. So we'll put that back at NA, hit save. All right, and we'll go to the next step. We will touch on the cargo theft whenever we get to the larceny theft also. But going through here, we've got the UCR offense code for the vandalism and the simple assault. I want to jump into the simple assault first because that's got more information to add. So you've got the UCR offense code, 13B, which is simple assault according to NIBRS, just like 13A was an aggravated assault. And then over here, you've got the location type that pulled in from our case and the bias motivation type. Now, one thing in here, a lot of people I see will set this to 99 as unknown. Apparently, for the FBI, unknown, it means that there was a bias, but you don't know what it is. And they'll usually send a warning just saying you have this as 99. Make sure that that's what you want it to be. We've just defaulted it to 88 because that seems to be what everyone normally puts in for bias motivation. So the only time you would need to change this is if it applies to something else. Otherwise, it defaults to 88. All right, and then the next one that we see a lot is going to be the offense was. Offense was completed or attempted. This is usually more prevalent in a theft. So completed and attempted. If the theft was completed, then something was stolen and something could be recovered. So you can only put a stolen piece of property on a NIBRS review if there was a theft and it was completed. If this was marked as attempted, then the theft would, you can't put a stolen property on it because nothing was stolen. It was just attempted. So you would put none for the property or unknown. All right, and then over here you've got the number of premises entered and the method of entry. Method of entry is only going to apply if this UCR offense code is burglary. If it is a burglary, then you would put N or F. So N for non-forcible and F for forcible. And then number of premises entered, you probably won't ever use this one. This only applies if location type up here is either hotel or a shipment yard. So it would be, if there was a hotel, you would put in how many hotel rooms that person entered during a burglary. And then if it was a shipment yard, same thing, however many containers they entered. All right, and then offender suspected of using, these are both pretty self-explanatory. They're just check boxes. So if the offender was suspected of using alcohol, computer equipment, or drugs or narcotics, you would check the box next to their name. And then attributes. So if it was domestic abuse, gang-related, or gambling-related, you would check those boxes. Over here, another one that we see a lot of is weapon or force involved types. So this is going to be related to certain offense codes. You're going to see that a lot as we go through here. A lot of offense codes require certain data where that data can't be entered for other offense codes. So for a crime against property, or sorry, a crime against person, like a simple assault, you would put in a weapon or force involved. This defaults to 99, but for the most part, none is probably not going to be an option there. So for this, like a simple assault, you might be saying, well, what if the person punched them, there wasn't a weapon involved? They categorize that as a personal weapon. So that would be a code 40, personal weapon, hands, feet, teeth. And that's what we see a lot. People just put none because there wasn't a weapon, but the FBI wants to see personal weapon if someone was hit. All right, and then scrolling down, the rest of these type of criminal activity, again, these are only applicable to certain offense codes. And then gang information, you can see are just checkboxes. We do have a document that goes over every single type of UCR offense code that applies to this type of criminal activity. So it would show you which ones up here would need something down here. Same thing with the weapon or force involved. We've got a document that goes over which UCR offense codes require a weapon or force involved. All right. Other than that, this page is good, so we'll hit save and close. And then we'll go over to our vandalism. Now, this one's pretty easy. For vandalism, we've got the 290 code for that. Bias motivation is already 88, and we've got the location type. Nothing else on this page actually applies to this one. So for this one, we are done, and we can hit save and close. Now, up at the top, you've got a couple options. You've got import, add, validate all, and validate segment. Import would be if you add another offense to the case, and you want to import this in without having to, start over. If you add it to the case and then refresh this page, hit import, that'll highlight, and then that'll let you import in another offense code. Add will let you just add one into the NIBRS review. In case you don't want to put it on the case report, you just want to add it to the NIBRS review. Validate all is going to check every segment in here and make sure that all the validation rules are there. And then validate segment is going to check just this segment. Now, we validate a lot through ARMS, but there's some that the FBI validates even more of. So this will validate just what we check for in ARMS, and which for the most part is going to take care of everything that you're needing. All of these buttons are going to be on every single page too. So you can do the same thing. If you go back and add a piece of property to the case, you can come in and import that property here. All right, but for this next segment, we'll check this. We've got our destroy vandalized property. We've got bicycle and $200. That pulls in all from the case, just like we put in there. So we'll hit save and close, and we're done with this segment. We'll go to victim, and we'll click on our victim. Again, you can set this up in the case, or you can come in and do it when you're doing the NIBRS review. You've got all your victim information up here, and then down here, you choose what crimes that victim was related to. So we've connected them to the UCR offense code. And then one other thing that you need to add here is going to be the type of injury. This is going to apply for the simple assault. Since it's a simple assault, you have to add a type of injury. And going on top of that, they even make it more specific to where you can only choose certain ones or certain injury types for the offense that you're looking at. So for a simple assault, you can only choose none or apparent minor injury. All right, and then aggravated assault homicide circumstances, these only apply for aggravated assault and homicide circumstances. So if you have an aggravated assault, you actually can only choose certain ones in this list, and then same thing, homicide, you can only choose certain ones in this list. And we will keep you from putting those in. If you hit save and you have something wrong, then we can check that with the validation. And then also we have a document that goes over that too, or the same document, basically. It's in the support site named NIBRS data entry. And it's all going to be covering what we're talking about today. And then down here is LEOCA information. The only time you can add LEOCA information is if this type of victim is a law enforcement officer. So once you change to law enforcement officer, then you would choose from these drop downs. If we go back to an individual, you can see they're grayed out and you can't choose them. Let me add this minor injury back in. And, well, let me cancel out because it removed all of that. I can go back in here and just add these back now. That all changed because I hit other on type of victim by accident. All right, we'll save that and we'll go to offender. For the offender, it imported everything that we have, and there's really nothing else to do for this one, so we hit save and close. You do see an option up at the top for completely unknown offender. That's something new with this version. you have to add in a completely unknown offender with this button. This would make it to where if you don't know anything about like a theft, and you don't know who stole the item, you would add in a completely unknown offender by clicking this button, and we'll go over that when we get to that theft, the theft section. All right, and then we've got the victim-offender relationship. We'll click Add up here, and you've got your victim right there, and then you've got your relationships to victim down here. So we'll just choose victim was a friend. If you had more than one victim, they would show up in this drop down up at the top, and you would choose them, and then you'd choose the separate victim's relationship to that same offender. If you have more than one offender, they would show up below that victim, and you would choose the different relationships to the different offenders there. All right, so we're done with that one. And then the last thing we want to check is the arrestee segment. So we'll go in here. A couple things to check in here. You've got the type of arrest. You would want to choose what type: summoned or cited, taken into custody based on a warrant, or on-view arrest without a warrant. And the multi-arrest segment indicator, this one is a little confusing, so let me explain it to you. This would be if there are multiple thefts and one person got arrested for all of those thefts. So if you have 3 cases that one person got arrested for all of them, for one of the cases you would put count arrestee, and then for the other 2 you would put multiple. That makes it so that NIBRS knows that this was an arrest on here and there are multiple cases related to it. All right, and then you've also got the suspect was armed with down at the bottom, so you would choose that if they were armed with anything. Other than that though, it imported everything from our arrest, and there's nothing else to do for this one, so we'll hit save and close. Now that we've gone through all, what I always suggest doing at the very end of a NIBRS review is go to the validate all button and just check the entire review. So no errors found on that one. So we're all good for this case, and we can now export that. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to jump through larceny, theft, and then the drug charges. This time I'm going to go a lot faster. I won't be going through each and every aspect of it, just to show you how quick and easy it is to go through and add a NIBRS review to it, as long as your codes are set up. So you've got your location on the face page. You've got your larceny all other on the incidents page. You've got your name, Mary Markison. She's having a rough day. And so we've got our involvement type and our name type. And you can also see down here, she is connected to the UCR offense code. So you'll see what that looks like when we get in there. And then the very last thing, she's got some clothes that were stolen. If we look at it, you've got the stolen category that maps to stolen over here. Clothes and furs maps to that. And then we've got a value of 200 again. All right. Other than that, we'll jump into the NIBRS review. And like I said, this time we are going to have to put a cargo theft. If we try and save this administrative segment, you can see it lets us know you have to have that cargo theft marked as no or yes for this UCR offense code. So we're going to hit no, hit saving it. All right, so we're good with that one. We'll go to the next one. Let's check out our offense. We've got our code, location type, bias. It was completed. And again, nothing else on that one, so we're good with that. Now to our property, we'll click on our stolen property. It imports stolen, it imports clothes and furs, and it imports the value of the property. Now, let's say this was a recovered piece of property. We will need to add that as a separate one. So her clothes were stolen, but we recovered them. So we would click Add up at the top, choose your property loss type, which would be recovered. And then we would choose the same property description, clothes and furs, and then put the amount that was recovered. So maybe we didn't get it all. We found $150 worth. And then we would put the date it was recovered. So let's just say today. All right. Going off of that, that's all that you would need to do for that, and you can save and close. I do want to point out these types of property loss. You've got one as none, which can only be put if it was completed or attempted. Burned, which is only allowed to be put on there if you have an offense of arson. Counterfeit and forged, you can only put that one as a property if you have an offense of counterfeit/forgery. So instead of this larceny theft, it would need to be counterfeit forgery or both. You would need to have larceny theft and a counterfeit. And then same with destroyed, damaged, vandalized. Just like on the last one, we had a simple assault and a vandalism code. That vandalism code allowed me to put this vandalized property. And then recovered, which is going to be with theft, stolen with theft, and then seized right here is going to be for weapon possession or drug possession or something like that that you would seize. All right, other than that, we'll hit save, and we've got our recovered piece of property in there. And one thing I do want to point out before we move on from property in here is the different types of values. For a stolen credit card or a stolen identity document, you have to put 0 as the value. That's what the FBI requires. That's not something we put in there. But it makes sense to where a credit card has no value. Someone may be able to steal $500 from a credit card, but the actual card itself is $0 in value. So you would put $0 for the credit card, and then underneath that you would put money, $500, or however much they stole. All right, so we'll go to the next one, which is victim. If we click on that, you can see it is connected to this offense code because we set it up in the case side. Other than that, nothing else is needed for this one, so we can hit save and close. And that's why I want to show you that if you do have a lot set up on the case side, then a lot of these segments you don't even have to check, or you don't have to do anything to, because they'll already be filled out for you. All right, and now for the offender. So just like we talked about with the last one, your completely unknown offender is on this case. There is no offender known. So what you have to do, all you have to do is click add to add that. And that adds a completely unknown offender. That is different than adding an offender with unknown here. They don't want that information. They want a completely unknown offender, which changes what it looks like on this side. All right. And then if you do have a partially known offender, then you would come in here and add in the age, sex, race, or ethnicity, whatever you know about the person. You would add that in as a partially known offender. All right, and then the last one, victim-offender relationship. Even though the offender is unknown, you do have to add a relationship. And this is also something new with NIBRS. They want you to put in a victim-offender relationship for every crime against property. It used to be only crimes against persons and robberies, but now it's crimes against persons and all crimes against property. So since this is a completely unknown offender, you hit add. It automatically marks it as just NA, and that's what you want to keep it as, and then hit save and close. All right, no arrestee on this one because we don't have an offender. So all we would do is hit validate all, and now there are no errors left. All right, and we'll go over to the next one. This is the last one for the drug, narcotics, and paraphernalia charges. We've got our location. We've got our 2 separate incidences. We've got our offender and his arrest. And for properties, we've got our drugs, narcotics, and our equipment. So if we come in here and edit, drugs, narcotics actually requires some more information. So you've got your property category that maps to seized. So evidence maps to seized. Drugs, narcotics maps to drugs, narcotics. And then you've also got to put in the weight, the NIBRS drug measurement type, and then the NIBRS suspected drug type. So this is weight of 2 grams marijuana. All right, we'll hit save on that. And equipment is going to be pretty much the same as a stolen property. You've got evidence that maps to seized, drugs, narcotic equipment that maps to that. And then you do have to add a value, which is going to be a value of 1. 1 is the default for unknown value for the FBI. So if you put 1, that just means we don't know the value of this. And for drug and narcotic equipment, it's always going to be 1. All right. Other than that, we'll go in and start our NIBRS review. Okay. So for the NIBRS review, we've got this page, which there's nothing we need to do on this page. So we'll go to our next one. Drug narcotic violation. You'll see right here, you may want to check the box for offender suspected of using if they were using it. And then down here, it automatically checks the box for type of criminal activity. And it does that same thing for the equipment violation. All right. Other than that, we'll move on to our property, and we'll go into our seized property. We've got the type of property loss. We've got our drug narcotic equipment valued at 1, drug narcotics, which needs to be valued at blank. They do require that to be blank. And then suspected drug type of marijuana, estimated drug quantity, and the type drug measurement. All right. So we're good on that. Again, if you do need to add another suspected drug type, you can. Or if you need to add any other property to it, you can. All right, and then our victim for this one, this is a little bit tricky. This is actually a crime against society. So if this is a crime against society, you need to add your victim and just choose type of victim as society. Then you come down here and map it to the right ones. You'll even see that these will say they are a crime against society. All right, save and close. Then the offender right here, again, you can check it out, but there's nothing that we need to do in that one. And we don't need to do a victim-offender relationship for this one because it's a crime against society. So there's not going to be a relationship between the victim and the offender whenever the victim is society. All right, and the last thing we need to do is the arrestee segment. So we'll check any of this. It all looks good though, and we'll hit save and close. All right, then again, the last thing you always want to do is going to hit validate all at the very end. All right, no errors found. So we've done 3 cases for this, and we'll just pretend like we went through the whole month of NIBRS reportable cases. And the last thing we need to do is actually extract that data from our ARM system. So I'll minimize this and remove that. And now we'll go into the ARMS NIBRS data extract. Let me move these over. I feel like they'll keep popping up. We've got our NIBRS data extract. So we'll click on that. This is something that is going to change with each version of ARMS. So if you guys upgrade, you want to make sure to get the new NIBRS data extract so that you can extract that data. You'll put in your server name and port. Once you put that in the first time, which normally when we set it up, we just put it in for you. Then the next time that you log into it, you don't have to type it in. Hit OK. And that'll bring up your NIBRS data creation. So what you would do in here, we're looking for the month of March. So we'll put in our date range, which I'm going way in the future. We'll put in 2019. And I'm even wrong there. I need to put 2020. So we'll put in March 2020 and then the end of March 2020. You would then choose your file destination, which you can see right here. I've got the ARMS NIBRS files. So that's where I'm going to go. I want to go to 2020. I always make a year and then a month folder for each month. So we've got March right there. Then you've got your city or county indicator. This is going to pull from your ORI number. So most of your ORIs are going to be MS and then a number, and then the 4 numbers after that are going to be your city or county indicator. So it'll be MS 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then numbers after that. So you would just want to make sure that that has the correct 4 numbers for your department. All right. Then once we are done with this, all you have to do is hit to create file. So once we hit create file, it's going to create a file in your folder that you're looking at. I do want to jump in here and show you what will happen if one of these is incorrect. So if we go back to our victim-offender relationship and remove that, then we hit validate all. It says, nope, you need to have a victim-offender relationship for this one. So this one didn't validate. If we come back over here, hit create file, it's going to go through and you can see we get a validation failed, view log file for details. So if you ever get that, all you need to do is go to NIBRS files. Let me drag this over. Go to March, and then check out your log file right here. So we've got the each NIBRS victim that that's connected with the crime against person or crime against property must have a victim-offender relationship. And it even shows you which incident number this is related to. So 20-0033. So now we would go to that, and we'll close out of this one. We would go back to that case, add in what we need to, and now we can extract this data again. So we'll hit create file. Now you'll see it'll say data export complete. And if we go into our files, you can see we've got a file right here now, which this one's set up to do Texas, but it'll show the file right here, which would have your ORI number and then the month and year that you exported the file. One thing to remember, I always kind of suggest renaming this right after you export it with just like a -1 or something like that to show that this was the first one you extracted, because if I ran this again and hit create file, everything for this month that we just went through has already been exported. If we run this again, it's going to look to see if there's any that need to be exported, and it's not going to see any, so it's going to pull a 0 report. If you didn't change your name of the file over here, then it would overwrite that because it's just going to print out the same file name, but a different file. So it would overwrite what you already exported. So that's something to kind of be careful of. But other than that, that file is going to be the one that you can submit to the FBI or the state whenever the repository is set up. All right. And then one other thing about this that I want to show you, if you do need to resubmit a case, so say you submit that case to DPS or the FBI, and they come back and say, this one had an error, we need you to resubmit it. You don't have to go through the month and make sure that all of them are correct. You would just go to the ones that they said had an issue or had an error on them. You would go to them, click to resubmit. You can see this one exported today, so it says that this one was exported. You would click to resubmit right here. Then you would go into your NIBRS review record and make whatever change you need to correct it. Then whenever you run this export again, it'll pull that file. So if we ran this again right now, it pulls that file, it creates a new file in here. This one right here, and this one's just going to have that one that I clicked to resubmit. This one will still have all 3 from the beginning. Okay, other than that, there's a couple FAQs that I do want to go over, or I guess just one FAQ that I want to touch on, and that is going to be for sexual assault cases or cases with no victim information. We get this a lot with some departments where you have a, and let's go into one of these, you have a victim offender or a sexual assault that happens, and the victim wants to stay anonymous. They don't want people to know anything about them, or you may not even have the information for that case. Unfortunately, this isn't something that we have come up with. This is something that the FBI requires. They require you to have information for that victim. So you can't have an unknown victim with no information on them for a case, really any kind of case. You can't have a victim with unknown information about them. So that's just one thing that you'll have to kind of know. If you do want to reach out and ask them about it, we can give you contacts to ask them what you should do with that specific case. But otherwise, if you don't have victim offender relation or victim information, then you can't report that. Okay. Other than that, I am going to drink some water real quick because I haven't taken a drink since I started. Okay, so we are all finished with what we wanted to cover today. Going over, again, we went over the certification process, a little bit of the code setup, the data entry into the case, data entry into NIBRS reviews, and the data extraction at the end. So now I'm going to pass it over to you guys, and I want to make sure that we are able to answer any questions that you guys have. So we went over this at the beginning of the webinar, but you should see a section on your meeting screen that says participants. Go ahead and click on that, and then you should see your name. And if you see your name, you have an option for raise hand. So if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Let me check on Josh. All right, Josh, you there?
I'm here.
All right, I saw that you raised your hand. Did you have a question?
No, it was the unmuting part.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so you are unmuted now. And anybody else on the call, if you do have a question, go ahead and click that raise hand button now. All right. It looks like there aren't any questions as far as I can see. I'm scrolling down to just check. I don't see any questions on here. Hopefully that means that I covered everything and answered all questions that anyone might even have. And hopefully it doesn't mean other people are asleep on the other end because of my voice droning on and on. But I will say, if you guys do have any questions, you can reach out to us at support@arms.com. That's going to be the email address that you can go to get some support information or create a ticket. You can also go to or call in to 1-800-776-6783 if you have any questions. If you are a customer that does not have NIBRS, or a potential customer that's on the line right now, we do have Zach Douglas on the line with our sales department that can help answer any questions in that. Or you can always email sales@arms.com if you're interested in that. Mainly today, we just wanted to show you what it looks like and also help everybody else out with some information on it. So this video will be posted a little bit later this week or next week. We'll have it online. So I'll send out another email just like the other one, letting you guys know how to get access to the video in case you do have any questions. And also any questions regarding the documentation, you can reach out to us to let us know if you need access to the support site or something like that. Otherwise, we have covered everything that we need to, and I'll go ahead and let you guys go. And again, just reach out if you need anything else. All right, thank you guys.